This is Stu Ellis with your Illinois Corn Connection, brought to you by Illinois Corn. Growers of popcorn are told by their contracting companies to not use certain herbicides on certain colors of corn, but no one really knows why. University of Illinois researcher Madsen Sullivan has been looking at genetics of popcorn to find out why.
Most popcorn tends to fall into one of two groups. It's either this yellow pearl, which is what most of us get at the grocery store and throw it in the microwave, and that's what we eat, yellow, round kernels. And then there's this other group called pointed rice popcorn. And these ones are generally, or they're more frequently white, have a very different kernel shape, and have a somewhat different origin than the yellow popcorns. So we said, well, maybe it's not actually yellow versus white, it's just this population versus this one. And just over time, people who didn't know enough just simplified it down to yellow versus white for simplicity. Well, it turns out that if you take this and you cross it with white material, you can get white popcorn that's from this original population that might not be sensitive to the herbicide. So we were thinking, let's test these original populations, this stuff from the American Southwest, from Mexico, from South America, and see if there's any herbicide differences between these. And when we looked at over 100 lines from this yellow popcorn group and about 100 lines from this pointed group, these are overwhelmingly sensitive to the herbicide that we tested, and the yellow pearls were not. So it's not the color per se, it's just that they come from two different sources, and they just simplified it to color because people just didn't really notice, or that part of the info just didn't get passed on. So it's not that yellow versus white has any true bearing on herbicide sensitivity. It's just that those ancestral populations to which these popcorns belong are just so radically different. One of them tends to be more sensitive, one of them tends to be much more tolerant.
Sullivan also genetically tested red popcorn varieties.
So these groups are what we could call, like, they represent just the historical natural diversity of popcorn across the Americas. And it was what was more predominant prior to 20th century American agriculture really changing what popcorn looks like. So now we all recognize this as the main popcorn, but historically it was these pointed, smaller popcorns that were grown by a household and contain considerably more genetic diversity than the yellow popcorn, which we are all familiar with.
Sullivan's research process found that popcorn is an ancient type of corn.
So when we performed our analysis, in addition to the popcorns we looked at a much larger diversity panel of corn, just in general. So dent corn, sweet corn, flints, everything around the Americas. And we wanted to see how these lines are related to each other. Think of it like a family tree, essentially. So when we created this family tree using our genetic data, we saw that the popcorns, specifically the group to which these guys belong, they were what you might think of as like a bit of an outsider relative to the other or relative to all the other corn that was included. And clustered with them were the teosинtases that were included. So for anyone who's not familiar with it, the teosинtases are the ancestral material to modern corn. But the way our analysis was structured showed that these popcorns and teosинtases were much closely related to each other than all other corn. So what exactly this means, we're a little unsure of right now and trying to figure out how to best go forward, but it looks like that popcorn may play a role in early domestication of maize, and that's something that we're really excited about and know where we need to go next on, but it's just getting to that point.
That was your Illinois Corn Connection. I'm Stu Ellis. To learn more about how Illinois Corn is working for you, visit www.ilcorn.org.